In the winter of 1966, trainer Sid Laird brought his champion racehorse, Sea Cottage, to Durban, where his ultimate mission would be South Africa's premier race, the Rothmans July. His preparation would see him run in the Newbury Sprint and then the SA Guineas before having a crack at the big race. A true gambler by nature, Laird placed the biggest bet of his life on Sea Cottage to win all 3 races, with bookmaker Sonny Chislett.
Sea Cottage.
Chislett wasn't a well-liked fella. He wasn't the type of bloke you'd mix with. Sid Laird and myself, we loved gambling. You know, he was a great trainer. I mean, one of the greatest of all times. But he was a victim for gambling.
It's a fool's bet, Sid.
Sonny Chislett ran his bookmaking operation from the Natal Tattersalls. Across the road was an illegal and underground betting joint called the Monaco Club.
It was a snooker club in front, and in the back, that's where the gambling was going on. That's where we were taking the chance because they used to raid these places.
The Monaco Club was often frequented by Sonny Chislett, who was very friendly with the club's owner, Monty Labuschagne.
He was sort of a gangster type of bloke.
Monty's henchman was a man named Johnny Nell.
He was a noted gunman. He was always very well, immaculately dressed. And he used to have his gun slotted in on the side of his belt.
To Chislett's dismay, Sea Cottage won both races leading up to the July. In the following week, a sedan pulled up at the beach during morning gallops. Among the men who disembarked from the car were Monty Labuschagne and Johnny Nell.
Monty said to me, he said, Herman, where does Sid Laird work his horses?
Sid Laird, if you go up 100 metres up the beach, Sid Laird.
Oh, great, we just want to go and have a look at Sea Cottage.
A few days later, on the 10th of June 1966, a single shot rang out from the Ellis Brown Viaduct.
There was no suspicion, but it all came to life after the shooting.
Drama entered the July story when, as Sea Cottage was returning from an early morning training session, an unknown person fired a bullet into his right hindquarters. All betting was suspended as veterinary surgeons examined Sea Cottage and X-ray plates were taken in an effort to find the bullet.
He would have come through here, and in this vicinity, Johnny Nell was above, and he leant over this shelf here, and he said that he shot the horse exactly where he wanted to shoot him. He didn't really want to hurt him and go into the bone or anything. He wanted to shoot him in the flesh.
In the following days, Sea Cottage seemed to recover enough to convince his trainer that he may still be able to take his place in the big race.
Now, Sid was desperate to run the horse. And he said, I'm going to win more money than I'd ever have in my life. That's why Chislett was in so much trouble.
21 days after being shot and carrying the hopes of the nation, Sea Cottage and his regular jockey Robbie Sivrite lined up for the big race.
A tremendous crowd is at Greyville to witness the 1966 Rothmans July Handicap. Carrying top weight at 6-1 is Java Head, who leads the field. Renounce is at 12s. Then comes King Willow, last year's winner and second favourite, at 4-1. Number 4 is the wonder horse Sea Cottage, favourite at 5-2. And the question on everybody's lips is, how will his injury stand up to the gruelling 10.5 furlongs? And the moment the whole of South Africa is waiting for arrives as the field comes under starter's orders, and they're off, with Nightjar on the inside, followed by King Willow, Ajax, Far Eyes and Renounce, and on the outside Highland Chief. Well back is Sea Cottage and Java Head. At the turn, Fair Sun leads from Highland Chief and King Willow. Only 2 furlongs to go, and it's Fair Sun, Highland Chief and King Willow together. On the outside is Far Eyes, and on the extreme outside is Kimberley Kid. Suddenly Java Head comes through. It's Java Head all the way from Ajax, Far Eyes and Sea Cottage 4th.
Often my dad would say he felt he was in for a chance. He felt he could have won it. The reason that he ran 4th, according to my dad, was because he was bumped in the race and he lost his footing and he gained ground again. But he really thought he was in for a chance.
In a cruel twist of fate, the very horse that bumped him was his own stable companion Java Head, who ended up winning the race. Many hailed Laird's achievement as one of the greatest training feats of all time. But for Laird, the victory was bittersweet. The man who had fired the bullet into Sea Cottage's hindquarters, Johnny Nell, was sentenced to 3 years in jail, with the real culprits, bookmaker Sonny Chislett and nightclub owner Monty Labuschagne, going scot-free. But that is a story in itself. With his big, crooked blaze, Sea Cottage could be spotted by punters a distance away without the aid of binoculars, and one of the performances that must remain in the memories of those who witnessed it was his mowing down of King Willow in the Clarewood Winter Handicap just 1 month after that fateful shooting. Sea Cottage suffered terrible misfortune in his next start, the Champion Stakes at Greyville, in which he was hampered and beaten for only the 3rd time in his career till then by King Willow. Sea Cottage's next mission would be the Metropolitan in Cape Town, where his prep for the big race was the Queen's Plate, which he won easily for the 2nd successive year.
Crowds pack Kenilworth in the Cape for the State Express Metropolitan Handicap. And here are some of the runners. Number 1, Java Head, is at 20-1. Number 2, Sea Cottage, is the 2-1 on favourite. Number 14, Ding Dong, is better fancied at 12-1. They're off with Solo Song making the running from Refinery, Ding Dong and Renounce.
But Sea Cottage was nearly brought down at the 1400-metre pole and was forced to race wide on the turn.
It's Ding Dong first, followed by Renounce and Refinery, with the favourite Sea Cottage in 4th place.
The Wonder Horse concluded his Cape campaign with a win in the Somerset Plate before returning to Durban, where in May of 1967 he once again displayed his extraordinary versatility in first winning the Newbury Stakes over 1200 metres for the 2nd time, and then only 4 days later winning the Gordon's Gin Handicap over 1900 metres. Sea Cottage's 2nd crack at the Rothmans July in 1967 would go down as one of the most exhilarating moments in South African racing history. His chief rival that year was an up-and-coming 3-year-old. Also bred by the Birch brothers, Jollify was owned by Douglas Saunders, the man who should have had first claim on Sea Cottage 4 years earlier, and was trained by Fred Rickaby.
Did we really believe that we were going to take on South Africa's champion horse and beat him? Well, at the weights, there was every opportunity.
Sea Cottage in that race carried 57.5 kilos and Jollify carried 45.5 kilos, which is 12 kilos difference. So if you work it out at 1 pound per length, he was 27 lengths better than Jollify.
We had as our young stable jockey in those days the emerging John Gorton. Unfortunately, which most people don't know, John got hurt in the week of the July and was not able to take off the weight that he wanted, and in the July handicap actually carried 1 pound over. Under instructions from Fred Rickaby and my father, John was to see that he kept the pace and, if it was possible, to come off the false rail and really go for the doctor. Because it was felt that Sea Cottage, with his great challenges that he'd done so often, wouldn't be far behind, but would really be made to gallop right from the word go.
Jollify was front running horse. And he was up there and he sneaked a break into the straight. He went and he ran about 8-10 lengths clear. And Sea Cottage was battling to get a run.
And the Greyville straight's not so long. And of course, I mean, not that I didn't want Jollify to win, make no mistake, you mustn't get me wrong. But Sea Cottage was our favourite, and I mean, we just shouted for Sea Cottage, I'll never forget. Oh.
Fred was confident that the horse was fit enough, and with the weight advantage, he believed we would win. As it so happened, the great Sea Cottage ran a magnificent race.
And away to go. Jollify inside back slightly at there from Sea Cottage. On the outside he comes Peter Beware, Onyx inside of him. And then comes King Willow. On the outside is Magic Bird. And then Confidant Chatterdock on the outside. And then comes Fighting Shot. Beyond that is Nightjar Coupling. On the outside of him is Holy Terror. And beyond that comes Java Head, Red Sands on the outside. Battleclub, and last of all is Smash and Grab. Now they've just gone through the 5 furlong markers. Battleclub in front there. Battleclub from Red Sands. Holy Terror in 3rd place. Then comes Jollify. Beyond Jollify is Peter Beware. Looks like one outside of him. And then comes King Willow. Beyond that is Sea Cottage. Now they're coming up to the half-mile marker. There's Battleclub is by the Red Sands, and the outside is Holy Terror. Then comes Jollify, Peter Beware. Outside of Peter Beware is Chatterdock. And then comes King Willow. Beyond that is Sea Cottage. On the inside of him is Roman. Then comes Magic Buddha. And beyond that Onyx. And the outside of Onyx is the Coupling. Beyond Calvigas, beyond Castelor is Drive ahead. Now they're taking the turn, they're coming this way from 2 furlongs to go, and there's Balaclava there from Jolly Pie shooting alongside of him. Right on the inside fence there is Red Sands, on the outside of that comes in the centre of King Willow, and right on the outside comes Sea Cottage. Now when they run in, Johnny Pie on Sea Cottage from King Willow. Johnny Pie, Sea Cottage from King Willow. And there he comes on the outer. That champion putting it to Johnny Cottage in. Is Johnny Pie from Sea Cottage. Johnny Pie on the inside from Sea Cottage. Johnny Pie on Sea Cottage. And the filming finishing in the front. I never knew. I think Johnny Pie might just have held on.
I'll tell you something, that's the greatest race I think I've ever seen. He got up, I thought he got up and won because I actually backed him also in the photo finish. Those days photo finishes was big betting, and that was my game, photo finishes. So result is, a stride after the post he was half a length in front. Another stride. I mean, what a feat, giving the horse 2.5 stone.
His acceleration over the last 100 yards and the tremendous lengthening of that coach stride had to be seen to be believed.
And Sid Laird was convinced he'd won, and so was Robbie Sivright. The place became almost electric. Who's won, who's not.
Everybody scanning up here. It was very close. I can promise you, Sea Cottage was absolutely eating up the ground. Number 2, Sea Cottage, and number 19, Jolly Pie, a dead heat in the Durban, July.
And the best part of the story was that when it was announced that it was a dead heat, Sid Laird just was beside himself. He leapt on to Sea Cottage and said, well, you know, I'm the new jockey of this horse, and was so excited.
Jolly Pie was only able to dead heat with him in the July because he had a very light weight and Gorton rode such a perfect race.
The true master in the irons that day was Robbie Sivright, who managed to get the best out of Sea Cottage without ever drawing his whip.
He used to love riding just with his hands and his heels. A good win for my dad would be hands and heels and no stick.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the champion Sea Cottage, number 2, who dead-heated with Jolly Pie to receive the sash. How they're going to sort this one out, I don't know. One sash for 2 horses. I suppose they'll take it in turns. They're bringing the 2 horses right up together. I wonder which one's jealous of the other. Now that's a lovely way. Each jockey is holding one end of the sash and sharing it together. 2 great horses, 2 great riders, and 2 great trainers.
Few people on course that day, besides the connections of both horses, would have seen the irony represented in the result of the 1967 July. That Sea Cottage, a birch-bred champion, who, but for a promise made to Sid Laird, would have belonged to Douglas Saunders, ends up dead heating with another birch-bred champion who was owned by Douglas Saunders. Hollywood screenwriters could not have penned a better script than the one that played out on that glorious day.
It is great that we had two July winners on one day, so it's good for Birch Brothers anyway.
Beyond comes on and cheap and then Domain. Now they're taking the turn.
In all, Sea Cottage won 20 races, from distances ranging from 1,000 to 2,400 metres, 9 of them having been Grade 1 events.
They go up to the 9 furlong post.
His victories included back-to-back wins in the Queen's Plate, as well as the Clarewood Winter Handicap, where just 2 weeks after his July victory, he gave his fans more anxious moments when, in his familiar style, he raced from the back and came with a late charge to beat Atty Purse on the line. His win in the Clarewood Winter rounded off his 4-year-old career on a massive high. But then came disappointment for Sid Laird, as the Birch brothers, feeling that the horse had nothing left to prove, asked for him to be returned to their farm to take up stud duty. Laird pleaded with the Birches, saying that he felt that Sea Cottage was only just getting to his best, and that if he was exported to America, there would be nothing that would beat him on grass. But the Birches were adamant, and he would have one more farewell run and would then return to stud. The Champion Stakes at Greyville, run in early August of 1967, was billed as Sea Cottage's farewell performance, and as such attracted a capacity crowd. In the paddock that day, without anything to lose, Sid Laird told Robbie Sivrite to go out there and have fun.
My dad was so confident on Sea Cottage that he felt he could win it from anywhere, front or back.
Into the straight now, they've got 2 furlongs to go on a jolly shot there from Sea Cottage on the outside. They come
For the first time in his career, Robbie elected to race Sea Cottage up with the leaders, and at the top of the straight, he let him loose.
drawing away, no seconds, all hands on heels.
He raced from the front. He was very handy and won by 9 lengths, and I wonder if he should have raced every race like that.
Amazingly enough, throughout his career, Sea Cottage had never run on the Highveld, and following his win in the Champion Stakes, Sid Laird was asked if he would consider letting his superstar have one final outing for the benefit of his Transvaal fans who had only ever listened to his races on the radio. Laird agreed it would be a fitting send-off, and Cutty Sark Whisky jumped at the opportunity to sponsor the event.
Gosforth Park, Germiston, a crowd of 21,000 sees the end of an era as racegoers flock to watch the first and last appearance of Sea Cottage in the Transvaal.
I watched him race at Germiston. It was the only time I watched him race. The buzz, the excitement was tremendous. The place was absolutely packed. On the inside running rail of Gosforth Park, they had put up temporary stands. They were packed. I couldn't see anything. I eventually managed to find a slatted bench, and I stood on top of the slatted bench and I saw them come down the straight.
From the start, Nightjar leads from Caradoc and Magic Mirror.
Sea Cottage's main rival in the 1700-metre contest would be top miler Magic Mirror, to whom he was conceding a massive 13 kilograms.
No great pace from Caradoc in second position, followed there by Nightjar, then Sea Cottage almost alongside Nightjar, followed by Wonder Man on the outside of that, followed by Gag King and Coupling.
I thought I'll try and pinch it on him and try and get a bit of a break on him, because I know Robbie Sivrite always used to come from well off the pace.
There's Magic Mirror from Nightjar, followed by Caradoc, then Sea Cottage in fourth position, followed by Gag King just alongside.
I came into the straight and got the horse balanced and let him stride. So I hit the front, sprinted away from the horses that were next to me, and I must have went 2, 3, 4 lengths clear. And I thought, oh well, nothing will come catch me now.
Up from Sea Cottage and Magic Mirror as they come through the 2. Now Caradoc, Magic Mirror and Sea Cottage almost racing together, with Caradoc has a slight advantage there.
And yeah, I was counting my chickens before they were hatched, and the next minute I saw this head come.
Here comes this magnificent animal, moving as though like a machine. Through the 1, it is Sea Cottage all the way. It's a case of what is going to run second. And here comes the Sea Cottage, the great Sea Cottage, cantering home here to a magnificent win from Magic Mirror in second position. Sea Cottage, Magic Mirror, Caradoc.
But every stride he took, he literally made up half a length. I couldn't believe I've never seen a horse move away as rapidly as that.
This great horse didn't disappoint his thousands and thousands of fans who came to see him run. First, number 1, Sea Cottage. Second, number 3, Magic Mirror. Third, horse number 6, Caradoc.
So often, horses like him, they remind us of just how vulnerable we are as judges of horseflesh, because there's something else in a horse that separates the great ones from the ordinary ones. There is no great horse that doesn't have this X factor, and there's no great horse that doesn't have an extraordinary amount of courage and guts.
Sea Cottage retired to stud, to the place of his birth, at the Bradgate farm on the Vogelvlei setup of the Birch brothers.
He came with his groom, and we waited for them at the local Dordrecht train station. They both got off, and the town, which isn't a very big town, but the town came to a standstill. And the whole town was at the station. And it was actually very emotional.
As a sire, however, he never produced anything even close to his almost freakish ability. And at the age of 20, he was relocated to the farm of breeder Carl Malcolmes in the Molteno area to live out the rest of his days. In 1986, in the twilight of his life, Sea Cottage returned to Clarewood Park for an honorary parade of champions, where he was reunited with Robbie Sivright. And although the passage of time was evident in their outward appearances, it had done nothing to blunt the memories and clear affection that Bob and Joe had for one another.
My dad was a trainer at that time, and it was a very emotional day for my family, for my dad in particular.
Upon his death in 1988, an autopsy was performed by Carl Malcolmus in an attempt to find that elusive bullet.
And we found the bullet lodged on the inside of the bone, so it had struck the bone, and with the impact or with movement, his subsequent training had gone all the way 180 degrees around and was on the inside of his thigh bone and mushroomed almost to as flat as a coin. On the bone itself, it looked like china, old china, the minute little fractures, little cracks on the bone. So the amount of courage that horse had to even do a little bit of training and run those few weeks after, this horse had incredible courage. His doggedness and his will to win was incredible.
Having served 3 years for shooting Sea Cottage, Johnny Nell was released from prison, but came out a broken man.
There was a knock on my door one night, about 9:30. I looked through the little hole in the door and I saw it was him standing there. I got the shock of my life. I thought he must have escaped. And he had his clothes wrapped in newspaper under his arm. And I said, "Johnny, what are you doing?" He said, "I've just got out of prison. They let me out." He said, "I'm very sick with cancer and I'm dying." And he started crying. So I said, "Fancy shooting a horse, Johnny?" He said, "I just wanted to put him out to race."
After losing out on Sea Cottage all those years ago, Douglas Saunders made sure that Maritime's third son was his. And in 1969, Naval Escort became the first outright July winner for Saunders, his son Chris, and trainer Fred Rickaby.
I always tell people that you have to be very patient in this game, and you have to have lady luck on your side. And you've also, I suppose, got to be one of those people that always believe in fairy tales.
The story of the mighty Sea Cottage is one that possesses all the elements of a fairy tale. It is the story of an ungainly, effeminate young horse that broke the mould and became an irrepressible superstar, who rose above tragedy to claim ultimate triumph, and in so doing, captured the hearts, minds and imagination of an entire nation to become South Africa's greatest legend of the turf.